All right, this is the Committee on Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service. This is Monday, March 25th, 2019. We're at 6 p.m. I have Councilor DePiero.
Here.
I have Councilor Napolitano.
Here.
And I have Councilor McLaughlin.
Present.
We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand to salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first piece of business. This is a resolution up by Councilor McLaughlin that the mayor appear at this meeting to discuss what can be done on Fridays in regards to public safety issues when City Hall is not open.
Chair recognizes the councilor from Ward 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is the mayor in the audience?
I don't believe so, but I do see Mr. O'Donnell.
Make a motion that we invite up Mr. O'Donnell, Chief of Staff.
Second. Good evening, Mr. O'Donnell.
Good evening.
Mr. O'Donnell, is May DeMaria in the building or no?
No, he's not. He's in training.
Okay. So, Mr. O'Donnell, I'm not sure if you were in the audience a couple of weeks ago when a resident had come up and had requested that we look into a possibility of this matter because of an unforeseen circumstance that happened in her housing development. But many people have come to City Hall with needs on Fridays and confused of where to go, where to turn. Some of my colleagues had talked about it after that individual had come up. So I thought it was good to put it on the calendar to get a question answered from a resident that had asked us a question and see where we were going to go from there.
Yes, I was, in fact, present that evening, and I did speak to the resident after with concerns and gave her my card with my cell phone number on as well. But normal course, I mean, that's the first instance that has come across our office in terms of that happening on a weekend. Normally people, if they don't get an answer here, when they call the business line of the police or the fire, that they get relayed to the right person, or the right person that would have to address that situation would be contacted.
Do we have a skeleton staff on Friday?
We have someone here until noon on Friday in 311. We have ISD people are here 7 days a week. So
and that individual's situation was housing, was the Everett Housing Authority. But
yes.
So there is ISD. So ISD does cover building problems or building issues.
7 days a week, yes, sir.
7 days a week. And 311 is answered 7 days a week, Mr. O'Donnell? Or what number would they call if they were to I know you said...
I mean, if 311 isn't available, normally people would call the police or the fire business line.
All right. So they call which maybe we can make it more advertised what the business, I mean, we know what the business line number
Yes.
is, but maybe we can make that more widely known with some, newspaper or ECTV, newspaper, whatever the
Yes.
case might be, just to be able to advertise that. So 311, the business line gets a message, gets a resident phone call, and what do they do with it at that point?
They would take down the information, and they would either give the resident the contact number or contact that individual themselves. Like, for instance, we would have probably contacted, obviously someone in the housing authority, but then also just someone from the water department to see where the issue lied. Whether, is it a city-owned pipe? Is it a property pipe? I mean, you're familiar with the industry more so than I am.
Yeah, no,
So,
no, absolutely, and kudos to...
we don't want to see any residents,
And kudos to the administration that they had handled it on the Friday night, and there was, an unforeseen circumstance. Nobody tried to hide from it. There was, addressed as best they could. It wasn't, it had to unravel to be able to get to a satisfactory point because it was a big issue. So it was many layers that had to be unraveled to be able to get to the solution, but nobody turned their cheek. Nobody tried to ignore the issue. Nobody tried to, avoid the issue. People were just wondering if they come to like that lady had come to City Hall originally, and the doors were locked, and she didn't know where to turn at that point, and she wasn't aware that you should call the police non-emergency business line at that point to be able to get some answers. And if the people don't know that there's a skeleton crew on Friday or there's somebody available Saturday or Sunday, I was just wondering if we could
Yeah.
do maybe a community outreach of,
Oh, absolutely, and I know collectively, as an administration and as a board and as a council of the whole, I mean, we're always looking for ways to make improvements.
yeah.
You know,
And honestly, and I know that any one of my colleagues who have received a phone call on the weekends, we've called you.
Right.
We've called the mayor, we've called, mostly any department head we need to call is available by their cell phone. I mean, I have personally called you on your cell phone and asked you a question on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday and been
Oh,
able to
sure,
get it resolved.
absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not that anybody, it's just the people that may not be in the loop or not in the know.
Well, sometimes in a state of panic, given the situation too, I mean, it's hard to rationalize what to do if you find the door locked too. It's like, oh,
Exactly.
now what? Yeah.
Especially, you can understand, Kevin, you have a mom who's elderly, and if she were to be faced with a situation, she's not going to be as quick on her feet as you and I,
Oh, absolutely.
as
Yeah.
somebody of our age bracket. So that's why I thought it was important to just kind of to bring this out and see if my colleagues had any questions. But could we commit to maybe advertising the business police, non-emergency
absolutely.
number in a few different avenues throughout the community, or maybe sending it home with a bill or something, a water bill or,
Actually, that's a good idea, especially
know-
now with the monthly bills. They don't-
yeah,
they don't be
maybe,
seen.
maybe we can just
Yeah.
slip in a piece of paper that says, for an emergency on business hours, contact 387-1212, which is the non-emergency business line for the police department. Maybe we could just put that into
Sure.
a monthly bill or something like that. So I thought it was important. She had asked for us to do this, that's why I brought it forward. Thank you for your help tonight.
No, thank you.
Council Napolitano, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, the situation that brought this all up, that resident wouldn't have gotten notification because they wouldn't be receiving a water bill. So, I mean, that's something that has to be taken into consideration. We have the 311 service, and what are the hours for that?
They're regular city hall hours, and then on Fridays, they're open until noon.
Okay. And then you mentioned code enforcement, but how would your average resident on a Saturday afternoon get in touch with code enforcement directly?
Well, that's something we could look to do going forward, but, I mean, if they would call the business line of the police station, then they would be referred to the business line of the police station would
And they would need
contact
to
the
know that,
inspector.
too.
Yes.
See, the thing is, my point, and again, I've always err on you create solutions for worst-case scenarios. And these are things that have to be addressed. I think it's great that we have 311. Your average resident may not even, I've talked to people who aren't even aware it's there. But I know that you've put the word out, so there's no lack of that. I've talked to residents who will not call 911 because they assume it's in place of a crime or something else, when in fact, a situation like the situation this woman was having where there was sludge coming in,
That certainly
that would have
warrants
been
that.
warranted an emergency
Absolutely.
situation. But again, you have to overcome people's perceptions of what those lines are, and that's why information is important.
Yeah, and not to interrupt, Council, I do also think that we should probably do this on more than, I mean, it's almost in some situations, we do the notices like one and done, but, people come in and go out of the city, people know, and it's, we all know, like, I'll get a notice from a credit card company or something like that to sign up for something, or Amazon, and you don't do it for 8 months, and you kind of forget about it. It's probably something that we should, through our communications department, get out on, more than just an annual basis, like maybe every 4 to 6 months type of thing, just a reminder or FYIs.
Yeah, and that's my point. That's
Yeah.
my point. That's what I mean by worst-case scenario. The type of situation, if there's an emergency at 5 o'clock on a Sunday evening, 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, these are situations that are unconventional, but those are why you have those processes in place, so people do know how to get to them. I mean, we assume a lot. I work in telecommunications. In January, the cellular 911 service went down. The state told people, well, call your local police department. Just on a whim, I've asked a number of people right around that same time if they knew how to call their local police department. Now, I grew up at an age where if you knew your your city's exchange and dialed 1212, you'd go through that. But I asked a number of people in their 20s, in their 30s, early 40s, they had no idea. So these are things that we assume because we're aware of them, and in our position at City Hall, we're dealing with them all the time. But your average person on the street may not be getting that information. So some type of continuous, whether it be ECTV, which is a good place to keep a continuous dialogue going, a quarterly or bi-monthly, posting in the newspaper, just a reminder, at least long enough to get people thinking along those lines. Continuous means of being able to provide your average person with the means of being able to get, make these calls in an emergency will save everybody a lot
Yeah.
of grief.
And we've
I don't-
also looked in, had a discussion this morning, with the possibility, and we don't know if it can be done, it's in its infancy stages, but, I mean, it's probably close to 70% of the households don't even have a landline anymore, so, maybe if there's ways we can get robo-texts out.
Well, that's
to
what the
people and things like that, yeah.
ECTV, and even robocalls aren't going to help. Robotext, okay, that's an idea as
Yeah.
well. I understand what you're saying there. But you need to know what the email addresses or the
Yeah, that's what we
texts,
have to see.
the mobile numbers are in the city to be able to do that. But, some more static type of methods, ECTV, local newspapers. We have 3 newspapers, though the city probably only, but either way, we've got plenty of means to be able to get information out to the general public. If we limit them to bills, your average renter does not get a tax bill or a water bill, so that's,
No,
You
we
let
have
it-
to leave no stone unturned with respect to
because they're more likely to be
advertising.
the ones, homeowners are outnumbered, by the residents who are
Yeah.
not homeowners. We got to have a means to be able to get to them.
Oh, no question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Refer to the sponsor. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion, refer this back to sponsor.
Motion made and seconded to refer back to sponsor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item has been referred back to the sponsor.
Item number 2
Thank
is a resolution by Council Simonelli that the mayor appear at this meeting to discuss the updates on the improvements to Air Force Road.
Make a motion that we invite up Council Simonelli, and make a motion that we invite up Greg St. Louis, DPW/engineer for the city of Everett.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you for Councilman Simonelli. Thank you for coming this evening. When is the construction supposed to start?
So we completed the original environmental notification form permitting process. We fell under an expedited review by the state due to a lack of resources, and they put us into an EIR process, environmental impact report process. So we're submitting the environmental impact report in the next month, and following that permit process, we need to finalize the water quality permit, the Army Corps permit, and the local wetlands notice of intent.
So there's no construction going to go on in the immediate future?
No, we had some, when Mass DEP reviewed our ENF form, the expedited review process didn't allow us to answer their questions that they could have had on the application, which threw us into this EIR process unnecessarily.
So the process of the ER is how long then?
It should be maybe 6 months more permitting, be able to bid it in the fall.
So 6 months. Before any kind of construction begins, it would be
That's correct.
possible that it would be about 6 months,
That's correct.
about 6 months. No. Oh, the priority of the opening to the Air Force Road from Tremont to Air Force Road, is that the number 1 priority?
So, the recent permitting of the off-site parking lot off of River Green, one of the conditions of that approval was reconstruction and design of the Tremont-Prescott intersection. That design is being completed currently and being peer-reviewed by the city.
And how long will that take?
The design's approximately, I'd say, 50% right now, so once those are finalized, they'll proceed with construction.
Before the end of the year? And then, maybe you can explain, the city's hockey rink that's on Tremont's gonna go somewhere else?
The relocation of Line Street Park. So next to 7 Acre Park, between 7 Acre Park and the Malden River, Wynn is reconstructing a new park there that'll have 2 tennis courts, the hockey rink, new practice field, new turf practice field.
When will that begin?
That's well underway. They're about 75% complete right now. Really waiting for the snow to go away to begin the rest of the turf process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor Hamlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last time we were here, we had discussed quite a few things about doing some construction on that place, and the concerns of the neighbors and so forth. And as I was thinking about this project, I came up with some other things that I'm not too sure about. And number one is that previous to any new streets coming into Everett, the Board of Aldermen, which is the council before us, was in charge of all city streets, naming, fixing, abutting, and so forth. Who now decides legally that a street is a street? Is that still under the city council?
So, River Green, as an example, was permitted under the definitive subdivision process. It is not currently an accepted street by the planning board. I believe it's my understanding that the planning board would need to approve the project and recommend to the city council to approve the project.
So it's not a street, that's what we're saying.
Correct.
It's currently not a
It's
street.
a private way currently.
Things I was thinking about on the street is that if, especially the spot where we're going to widen the street out off of wherever they're doing that.
Air
past-
Force at
yeah.
Prescott.
And I was thinking that, all streets that we know of have curbstones and curb cuts and so on and so forth. And I don't see any of that down there, so I know that if we're going to put a street in there, say it's an acceptable street, we certainly want to see curbstones and openings where they have to be openings to the other businesses that are down there and so forth. And that we would also need, a center line, something that goes down to the center line and so forth, those street markings.
So, for clarification, are you still talking about River Green or Air Force Road at Prescott?
I'm talking about Air Force Road.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Air Force Road's definitive subdivision was permitted with concrete curbing as opposed to granite curbing.
Right, whatever it is, as long as there's a curbing there, and the center lane, openings for turns and so on and so forth. And that whole area should be under control of the traffic division. They're the ones that should be setting a speed limit and so forth. I'm still not in favor of that being a street, by the way, but I know that we need someone down there to set the speed limit, and that's certainly not the engineers, that's going to be traffic control. They're the ones going to say it's going to be 20 miles an hour or so forth. And if you go down there in the morning, you watch the people on Tremont Street turn into that's also called, that's Tremont Street, and back onto Air Force Road. They're all exceeding the speed limit. I mean, they fly through there like it's a racetrack, so that's why I want it to be under the traffic control, that they're the ones should have that control. And so I'm expecting that next time we talk about that someone should say, no, that's all taken care of and so forth. Okay? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anyone else, councilors? Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. St. Louis, just one question, because I had been following closely on the parking permit for Encore at the River Green lot of 600-plus vehicles that was granted. And they had told us that the one of the big improvements would be this roadway access point. You're now going to have 600-plus cars that, well, they hope that they wouldn't have to utilize the lot, but if they had to, in worst-case scenario, come June, that they would be able to put 640 or so cars on this site, and that this would be one of their important entrances and exits to this facility, would be the improvement of this path, if you will, and that they would do all they could to work with the city to make it a lot more usable, friendly than it is today. But now you're saying that we're 6 months, if not greater, away from construction starting there. So in 3 months from now, we could potentially, and again, this is hypothetical because they made it very clear that they only did this lot for worst-case scenario. But you and I can probably imagine the worst-case scenario is probably going to happen in June when everybody comes to Everett for the excitement of the new facility. Are you concerned that this small passageway that has, thankfully to you, a new sidewalk put in, but not a lot of usable, friendly entrance and exit is going to be not rectified? Because I had stressed that to them. I said, if you guys are going to put this down there, you really need to look at this entrance and exit, because as I know you travel, and I know my colleagues travel it on a frequent basis, one car is stopping one way or the other. If you're coming from Tremont going out onto Air Force Road, you need to come and to a stop and wait for the car to come the opposite way, and vice versa. That's happening all day long now. And it's working to a point because it's a steady flow of vehicles, but there's no peak time that it's just consistently happening. When you flood 600-plus cars down there, you can imagine that it's going to be a heck of a lot more used, and it's going to be a lot busier. Are you concerned by that? Because I'll be honest, I am. You know what I mean? I hear that tonight for the first time, that we're 6 months away from it, when several weeks ago, just a handful of weeks ago, we were in the zoning board of appeals meetings, and we were being told that this was going to be a priority to get rectified and get worked on immediately before June.
So I apologize. The 6-month time frame was in relation to the drainage project, not the Prescott Street reconstruction effort that's ongoing. We are reviewing those design plans now. I imagine that they would get their site contractor that's building the parking lot to reconstruct this as soon as possible. I don't have a schedule in front of me on that, but certainly they've complied with all of the traffic peer reviews and all the other items that have been, that their application has been subject to.
So is it safe to say that we'll see significant improvements on the Prescott Street extension roadway before June, before the opening of this parking lot? Because they're hoping to have the parking lot striped and ready for usement come beginning of Encore. Is it safe to say that?
I'm just going to ask the traffic planner, Jay Monty,
Yeah,
if he has
sure.
a
We
schedule.
can make a motion and invite up Jay Monty from traffic.
Hi, Mr. Monty. Come right up.
Thank you, Counselor. So I believe, they are going to make every effort to have that open in time for opening. That is a priority of theirs and a priority of ours. It's a condition of the permitting process, as you know.
Yeah, that's,
So I'm pretty certain it will be completed. The issue with that crossing is it's not all city land. It's MBTA property that they're crossing, so there may be an approval we have to get from the MBTA. I know the two of us are working on that now. As soon as we get that approval, they can start construction. It should be a pretty quick job to actually go ahead and do it, so I would imagine they should be able to wrap this up pretty quickly.
so they're going to expand what's there currently, right?
Right.
Whether it's, so it's going to, if you're looking at it, so say Tremont Street is to my back, and I'm looking out onto Air Force Road and looking towards the Malden River,
Sure.
and Tremont Street's to my
Yep.
left. Are they going to open that to the left of that or to the right of that? So towards the Madeline English School or towards where we moved the skate park, the outdoor skate in Rossetti Park?
Sure.
Going to go that way or towards the school?
So if you're facing the Malden River and you're just shy of the path,
Yep.
there's curbs on each side of the road.
Right.
And it'll basically match that existing cross-section the whole way over the trail. And it'll be a raised crossing with, brick pavers, stop condition, exiting onto Air Force Road. And so it should be, some form of traffic calming. The path is actually going to move up parallel with the sidewalk at the corner as a safety improvement. So there's really kind of two components. One is widening the road, but also creating some safe crossing components that we reduce some of the conflicts that are there today.
So the outline currently for that path, is that expected to be wider or stay as is with amenities to flow traffic smoother and better through that existing?
It'll be wider than, at the exact crossing of the path, it will be wider. It will match the roadway, the portion that's, behind that.
Yeah.
And back towards Tremont Street, it'll match that.
So
way.
right now, there's true
It'll be two
curb,
lanes.
there's true sidewalk, then there's grass areas to the sides of that.
Yep.
And then it goes to the property of the auto body shop to the right,
Right.
and then to start of the fence to Rossetti Park.
Right.
So it's gonna go to match what, the roadway or match the
It'll-
grass
it'll-
area?
It'll match the roadway next to the auto body shop, basically. So I have to look and see exactly how much they're widening and where, but it'll be one lane each direction, so there won't be the conflict of, one vehicle having to stop and let the other vehicle go. It'll be 2 complete lanes.
It will be, that's what I thought. It's
Yeah.
going to be 2 complete lanes,
Right.
right? Okay, so that's better to hear that than 6 months' worth of nothing happening before that, because I knew that was
Right.
a stipulation of them getting the permit, and was they were going to make this happen.
Right.
And we feel comfortable that they will get this work done or close to getting done around the June timeline?
I'm
this month?
pretty, like I said, it's written into their permit, so, we do have the authority to withhold the, occupancy permit for that site if not all of their commitments are met.
No, and I know that the group does a great job at meeting all of their requirements, and they'll probably get ahead of it, to be honest with you,
Hopefully.
with the nice weather breaking. I just wanted to clarify, when we heard about 6 months, I said, wait a minute, this could be a problem here with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time, and if my colleagues have any further questions, but thank you.
What's your pleasure, Counselor?
Motion to refer back to the committee in 6 months with an update.
Want to keep it in committee and in 6
Please.
months have a conversation again? Counselor Hanlon?
And, Mr. Chairman, also, if you would further, that the gentlemen that have been before us, whatever we have asked them to do, to send us a communication, doesn't have to be on the calendar or anything, but just a communication that that item is progressing along. Thank you.
And with that, Mr. Chairman, too, the Traffic Commission needs to be involved in the report, or no? Traffic Commission to be written in the report, coming back to us?
I'm sorry, I don't follow. You want an opinion from the Traffic Commission?
Well, of the gentleman that they're working with the Traffic Commission, that's what Mr. Hanlon is looking at.
Okay.
Is that
In 6
possible?
months from now? A motion made and seconded to keep this item in committee with the intent on having a conversation in 6 months to see where we're at and involve the traffic individuals as well.
Excuse the gentleman, customary thanks.
Counselor?
I'm sorry, no, go ahead. I just excuse.
This is all supposed to be completed by June? Is that correct?
That's not permanent, right, yeah.
If it's going to be completed in June, why are we holding it until September?
It's
It
up to
doesn't
the-
make sense.
Up to the board.
I mean, we're going to hold it for 6 months. We'll know in June whether it's working or not, right? 3 months if you feel, or at least a report prior to opening if you feel the need. But otherwise, it doesn't make sense to keep it beyond the point. We'll know that it's working. What's the report back in September? So that's only my concern.
Make a motion,
And actually, as a member of the, I know that as the sponsor, you really can't make the motion. So I would make a motion that we hold this for 3 months and just ask for an upgrade.
Is that fine with the sponsor? Okay, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Counselor?
There is just to bring it to everybody's attention, there's 2 separate things that we're talking about. One is the improvements to the Prescott Street extension, which has been promised or been committed to being open by June. And then there's the 6-month delay on the water flooding issues down there, and hopefully the upgrades to the culvert system going out to the Malden River and so on. So I think both timelines are actually pretty important to see where we stand in 3 months with work being completed on the Prescott Street extension, and 6 months from now to see where we are once the EIR report or process is completed, and whether or not we're able to proceed forward and where we're going to go from there. Because I think there's a whole lot of stuff happening in that area that I think there's just being mushed together. But I think both 3 months and 6 months from now are going to be very important for that neighborhood down there to understand where things are happening in the city.
Counselor Napolitano?
And on that point, the piece before us. To that point, the piece before us is an update on improvements to Air Force Road. So if we're talking about the road, we're talking 3 months. If we're talking about the water drainage, 6 months, that's an entirely different piece. Just because it's in the vicinity of the same area, it doesn't make it the same piece. So I would ask that if there's a need for updates regarding the drainage, then that is a separate item that should be put on our agenda and then go through the process. But this is specifically says roads, and that's all I'm interested in at this stage, and that's the only information I have in front of me is regarding the roadway. And that was what the questions were answered for. So let's get an update on the roadway before it's actually open so we know what's going on. And if there's issues regarding other development or other work down there, it's a separate issue. That's my opinion. I don't think I'm wrong, but then again, I'm open to anybody else's interpretation.
So for now, the motion is to hold it over for 3 months. Are we all clear on that? Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to hold the item over for 3 months.
Release the gentleman.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. The motion was made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Final item.
Item number 3, this is a resolution up by Council McLaughlin that the mayor is here to appear at this meeting to give an update on any recommendations that have been made from the School Review Commission.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Burley, I'm actually going to ask him a question, which is, if I make a motion to hold this over, when will be the next government operations, public safety, and public service meeting?
Can we have someone before us, Mr. Chairman?
When is it, Mr. Burley? You don't have a date? Okay. I really think that it's crucial, actually, I know it's crucial, to have the mayor here, and he's in training this evening, so he can't be here, which is perfectly fine. But I want to make a motion right now that we lay this on the table to the next meeting so that we can have the mayor present to discuss this with us. I'm hoping to have this information before budget season in May, which I think we will have a meeting sometime in April, and that will give us enough time to be able to get the information that I specifically would like to hear from the mayor on. So I'm going to make a motion that we table this for one meeting
Postpone
and
it on the table. Postpone.
postpone this till the next meeting and invite in Mayor DiMaria, and ask the clerk if he can send a letter to the mayor asking him to try to make it of importance to attend so that we can have this discussion. I'll put that in a form of motion.
Councilor Napolitano.
On the motion, if there are representatives here that have the information, and they're being and that information is being delegated by the mayor, which is proper management, I don't see what the significance of having the mayor specifically answer those questions. If there are members if there is representatives in the House that are able to speak on his behalf who have the information, why would we delay the information of the meeting? Again, the only way we're going to ask, that is if we invite the gentleman up here and ask. But again, whatever the committee wants to do is whatever the committee wants to do. But, if we have somebody with the information, the mayor can never be an expert on every facet of the business. That's why we invite the CFO. That's why we invite the other people. This is what we're trying to get qualified information, and whether it's coming from through a representative, delegated, or whether it's coming directly from the mayor's mouth, same information. So why are we holding it up? If the councilman wants the information, let's get the information out there. If there needs to be further information, then hold it over. But right now, we have people came here prepared to give us this information. Why are we telling them, thank you for your time, but we don't want to hear from you tonight? I don't think that's the way to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, in all due
Come
respect,
forward.
I don't see the,
Councilor McLaughlin?
I'm sorry, in all due respect, I don't see
I think the
Mr.
CFO was in that same training, just for
Okay, so
information.
Mr. Demus isn't here, nor the mayor isn't here, so that's why I thought it was most prudent to hold it over till the next meeting, because Mr. Demus nor the mayor are available this evening. So that's why I made the motion that we postpone this.
That's fine. As the sponsor, I'll defer to you. And in the meantime, I welcome you to get the minutes in the clerk's office, come to the next meeting and see firsthand the business we conduct there.
But it's, and I respectfully, I agree with that, but it's not just that one
No, I understand.
Portion of it. So that's why I think it's prudent to have this held over for, until the April meeting, but I will request those minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Motion was made and seconded to hold this item over. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Motion made and seconded for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.